Welcome, everyone. We're delighted that you've tuned in for Hawthorne University's All About Alumni. I'm Paula Bartholomew, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing our graduate, Julia Visser, and you're going to have the opportunity to ask her questions. All you need to do is type them or your comments into the webinar panel at any time. So hello, Julia. I'm so glad that you're here.
Hi, Paula. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm very excited too. It's really my pleasure to showcase you and to introduce your presentation in experiments in building a business and a life that you love. So today we have busy mom and Hall of Fame athlete Julia Visser sharing about her experiments in growing a nutrition business organically, surrounding her passions in business, athletics, and motherhood while balancing life as a parent and wife. Julia is on a mission to help individuals fuel their whole body for abundant energy, thriving health, and the fulfilling life that they deserve. As a wife and a mom, the founder of Jules Fuel is also a collegiate Hall of Fame athlete with a Master of Science in Holistic Nutrition from Hawthorne University. With her functional medicine approach, combined with a background in corporate America, her unique knowledge and experiences serve a variety of individuals and groups, including business executives and corporations, elite athletes and sports teams, and busy parents and families. She seeks to empower clients with simple, sustainable wellness practices for life that serve their health, performance, and purpose. Well, that's just beautiful, Julia. It's just a beautiful bio and framing of who and how you are. So I'm going to let you start here, and I'm going to let you start.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paula. So yeah, I just wanted to give a kind of a quick overview of what we'll cover today. I mean, like my title talks about, I'm still kind of in this experimentation phase of starting my young business. So I wanted to at least share part of my story and my background that got me to where I am today, and then how I'm kind of pursuing my niches via my passions, and then how I'm balancing it all. So we can dive in with my story first. So I'm a visual person, so I figured that could help right with pictures. So going way back to when I was a child, honestly, I've always had a really strong interest in nutrition and health, but I grew up in the low-fat era. And so unfortunately, I was kind of prone to that, sifting my egg yolks out and that kind of thing, and just eating low fat, and really struggled even as a high-performing athlete. You can see it on the left. I played collegiate basketball for a Division II school, Grand Valley State. And even though I was this elite performing athlete, I remember just always feeling tired. I had, I'm pretty sure, female athlete triad syndrome going on, where I had frequent stress fractures, especially my freshman year. And, just these kind of issues where it was under the radar enough where I didn't think that what I was fueling myself with, could have caused those issues. But I even had like weird weight gain, right? Like when I got my injuries, I just was eating like a football player and dealt with gaining weight and having to lose weight. So I went to my trainer at the time. They didn't have a nutritionist on staff, of course, and she just told me to count my calories and to eat low fat, and that's what I did. And I did drop some weight, but I just continued to feel like I was always a struggle, and I was always hangry, if you will. I definitely had some hypoglycemia going on. So fast forward, I ended up right around the time I married my husband, who played professional basketball for 8 years. You can see a picture of him down there, Kyle Visser. He and I had just gotten married, and I had these odd symptoms. I was really burpy and had, some stomach issues going on. At the time, of course, I had a ton of stress as well. I was planning a wedding. I'd moved to Europe to live with him, and had switched actually with my company. I was with a medical technology company to work for their branch in Europe. So there's a lot on my plate. And that basically manifested in gastritis. And so at the time I was already researching, kind of functional medicine and real food nutrition, but did have to go through and obviously get diagnosed with this. So there's a picture of this German hospital above my husband, because I ended up having to stay in this crazy hospital for 3 days and have extensive testing done. And then the doctor looked at me and just said, take this PPI, this acid blocker drug. And so I knew enough by then that wasn't going to cause or to help solve the root cause of the issue, which, goes way back to my childhood, where I was a C-section baby. I was not breastfed. I had tons infections and antibiotics, et cetera, et cetera. So anyhow, I decided to pursue healing myself holistically. So I sought out a nutritionist locally who was really, really helpful. And so that kind of started my whole journey. And it took probably a good year, really, to feel back to myself again. But that was really eye-opening, right? To have the power of food and what I call the different fuels, right? Trying to manage my stress, manage my sleep appropriately, exercise appropriately, all these different things to have my body functioning like it should. So meanwhile, I decided to pursue studying it all. You know, I didn't know where it would lead me, but I figured at a minimum, it was always my passion and I could help to serve my family better with my knowledge. So as you can see, the little dots progress on. I ended up hooking up with a local functional medicine practitioner, Dr. Denbour. He has a thriving practice here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And that was really fantastic to be able to kind of mentor under him while working for him, actually part-time doing marketing. So abroad, I would just work, you know, abroad. And then when I was home in the summers with my family, I would work in his office. So that was pretty cool. So that's where those pictures come into play. So the next phase was really, you know, learning through Hawthorn and kind of mentoring under him. And then upon finishing, I decided to kind of fully go through and launch my business, Jules Fuel. So I had started the blog back, gosh, in 2012, honestly, right when I started the program, just to kind of document my journey and my knowledge through this program. But then I really decided to make it more of a professional brand. So that's where you see the picture kind of my family, which along the way I've had 2 children. But that's kind of, I guess, my story to getting to Jules Fuel, which my huge passion, honestly, is that I feel like all of us have just this great purpose, right? We all have gifts and talents. And when we don't fuel ourselves properly, you know, then we can't achieve that. So that's kind of my big calling, if you will, in life.
It's a strong calling, and it's interesting, your circuitous route that led you to Hawthorn through your personal health challenges and your own intuition. It's interesting here in this first thing that you saw 2 nutrition professionals. The first one was eat low cal, eat low fat. And the next one must have been a little bit different because it seemed like they were more aligned with your inclinations, and it's spurred you to find a program at Hawthorn to study on yourself.
Definitely. And I think, you know, everyone is so biochemically unique, you know, and so for me, it was just experimentation along with her guidance and her training in functional medicine. And then honestly, having worked for Dr. Denbour, he took me on as a patient. So that was additional help and knowledge as well that kind of got me to, you know, becoming a much healthier person.
Fabulous. Great good fortune. Well, I think, you know, so much happened while you were in your MSHN program at Hawthorn. So it'd be helpful, I think, if you talk to us a little bit about how you balanced and managed it all, because you were really building your platform there at the same time. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Definitely. Yeah, I have not had a conventional, I guess, schedule, if you will, for many years. Like I said, at the time, I lived in Europe for about 4 years, from 2011 to about 2015, when my husband was playing professional basketball. So most of that time was in Germany. You know, he had about 2 practices a day. So obviously, before we had children, I had ample time, you know, to myself. But then once we had our daughter, I really relied on him to kind of step in between practices, you know, just to have time to study. We ended up hiring like a local nanny just for a couple hours a week as well, just to have additional time to get that done. Because I was also working for this practitioner, right? So between my husband and kind of having additional childcare, and then of course, when my daughter was sleeping, you know, that was always a time that I could get things done too. But it wasn't easy. I mean, she was a horrible sleeper, to be frank. So for those of you who are going through that stage, I understand where you're at. It's kind of survival mode, right? Mm-hmm. So then, yeah, and then connecting with the doctor, just kind of managing between my own blog and then working for him and studying. It just was, I'm pretty much a list maker. So it was kind of having to schedule out what I needed to get done in terms of reading and assignments and that kind of thing. And then work for him, you know, it was just being very disciplined, I would say, was the biggest thing that helped me.
Were you doing, for Dr. Bora, were you also blogging and newsletter, and were you doing that for him as well?
Right. So I had a variety of roles for him. So yeah, I guess I'd call myself a marketing consultant for him. So I actually started a newsletter for him. I also started a sales program where kind of quarterly, they have this supplement, separate kind of sister company within the functional medicine office, where they do a lot of business with selling, especially like metagenics. So I recommended doing kind of sales, right, to quarterly sales to kind of drive business that way. And then I did blogging as well. So a lot of them were topics that he would pick, but I would do kind of the back end research and also go off of what we were talking about. I did some social media stuff for him as well. So yeah, it was kind of a variety of different things, but it aligned with what I was studying at the time too. So it was helpful.
And did that spur you to start your own blog? And Jules Fuel, I think it's just such a great name. It's talk about the name just a little bit. And
Thank you.
It's very unique.
Yeah, so I actually had started my blog. I just switched the slides, by the way, so you can see kind of the current presence of it. But I started it back in 2012 before I actually met him, just because I always have loved writing, to be honest. And I figured with this new program I was enrolled in, it was a way that I could kind of share my learnings and have a voice, if you will. So yeah, hopefully. And then in terms of the name, I wanted something that was short and sweet and to the point. And my nickname is Jules, as you could probably tell. And for me, like I said, my passion is really kind of all these different fuels. If you think of ourselves as kind of a pie, right? We have got so many different inputs to being a whole healthy person. So that was what I kind of wanted to hit on, was all the different fuels that we can maximize to be a whole healthy person.
All right. Well, you've gone through a few different iterations here. I mean, you started Jules Fuels in 2012, and then I think you're about to have another child when you're rebirthing Jules Fuels. Is that right? When did you decide to rebrand and relaunch your website?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pregnant with my third child, so I know it's confusing. When I was I finished my degree like a month before I delivered my son. It was like January time. And then 5 months after having him, I was still working for Dr. Denbour at the time, but I just really felt called. I had some opportunities at the time with a local university women's basketball team and different things. And with being a young mom, I just felt like with my time, I wanted to pursue my own thing and not, necessarily be under this umbrella. Not that it's bad, but my time is limited. So that's when I really decided to go forward and rebrand my whole website. So it was a process definitely in and of itself, right? Because it takes time. It took time to have a new logo developed. It took time to work with a web designer and kind of make it clean and simple and how I wanted it to be. But ultimately, I'm definitely thankful I did it, because it's different from being a blog versus a professional website, right? And I still have that component where I can at least share information and articles, but I also have more of my services and offerings as well.
All right. No, it's important to be able to see, what you do, what your services are, what your programs, and you're offering packages too. So hopefully it'll, and are you seeing it successful? Are you seeing business being driven from your website?
So it's hard to tell, right? I mean, I was blogging a ton back before I had children. And since I've had children, that has been something that honestly has gone by the wayside, because right now I'd rather drive business in person and connect locally and, with local groups and people. So that's another thing, as I get more time back in my life, when my children are older, that's something I'd love to do more of. But at least, like, for example, I'm most of us are on Facebook, right? But there was someone who tagged me because someone was looking for a local nutritionist, and they tagged me and she said, well, what is your website? So I shared that, and then she contacted me through my website to see if we'd be a match to work together. So it's at least kind of like a low or an online business card, if you will, right, where people can go and see kind of who I am and my philosophy and what I do.
Certainly. Well, you've had some very interesting clients. I mean, everybody works with clients in one way or another, but I'd say, talk to us about this a little bit. I mean, when you have the Davenport women's basketball team as one of your clients and the CEO of a fast growing company, Just share some of your clients and what that experience has been like.
Yeah, so this is definitely still, again, an experiment. But for me, having been an athlete, I worked in corporate America for 4 years for a medical technology company. And then now I'm a young parent. So those are kind of the 3 areas where I really feel called to. So that's kind of what I've gone after. So I had the opportunity to work with a local women's basketball team, Davenport University, which was awesome. I mean, they've been notorious for being like runner-up national champions and that kind of thing. So that was really fun. I connected with our local public safety department. There's actually a picture in there that you'll see. So it's kind of funny because I'm living where I grew up, and just decided one day that I would kind of just see, do they have any help in that way? Because I feel like they're the ones that need to protect and serve themselves first before they protect and serve our community. So sure enough, a door was opened and I was able to do education to all the shifts there, and they want me to come back in April as well. So that was really fun. And then, yeah, I mean, I had a client who was the CEO of a pretty big, fast-growing company in Ann Arbor that I worked with remotely. I've got another client coming up who's a mom who just wants help with like grocery shopping and that kind of thing. So, and then recently I actually, as of 6 months ago, took on a corporate wellness gig, which has been really fun, honestly, having been in that arena, right? And having been in sales, it's a hard, busy life to balance being healthy with. So I feel like I could speak to that, but that's an international company based out of Toronto. And so I'm currently kind of working with them to design this grassroots corporate wellness program, which has been fun. So right now what it looks like is I'm doing webinars for them every other month. I am an administrator on their Facebook page, so I'm able to help, publish content. And usually the content is closely tied to the webinar topic of that month or the coming month. We do run challenges. So I had a webinar last month about stress. So we kind of ran this stress challenge where people have to kind of upload pictures and discuss the nutrients they're eating and that kind of thing. And then there's a winner. So the current winner actually gets a free mental health day by the company where they just, can take off and do whatever they want. Just kind of trying to drive healthy change and actually, healthy adoption, ideally. So that's been really fun. So yeah, it's kind of always morphing. And I feel like at this point, I'm just keeping the door open to seeing who can I serve, what am I good at, what really calls me. And I feel like over time that the more experience I gain and these opportunities keep popping up, I'll continue to hone more of my niche, and hopefully even gain more experience with developing programs and that kind of thing.
I think this is a really important part of your share. I think a lot of people struggle with what their niche is going to be and who to serve. And you really came about it seems very intuitively from who and how you are and your personal background and experiences and personal interests. So it's like from that you build into your passions. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think there's not one size fits all, I guess, right? In terms of starting a business in this realm, I'm sure like you've interviewed and been connected to so many different alumni and business owners, and everyone has a different story. But for me, it's just natural to go with my passions and who I enjoy working with, right? I always say, especially like athletes are kind of my people. They're just driven a similar way and pretty motivated. So yeah, so for me, it was kind of a natural, I don't know, it just kind of unfolded that way.
Well, let's get a little bit current now. We've built up to where you are right now. So you've got a growing family. And I think it's a really important thing to talk about. We have a number of women in the program that are also with young families. So how do you plan on building your business and fitting all that into your lifestyle? What is your lifestyle?
Right. So I feel like after having each child, it's been an interesting transition to finding what I call the new normal. But thankfully, I do have a pretty flexible husband, which is a huge help, right? Because he's a realtor. And so he can have some flexibility over his schedule. So for example, he's like watching my children right now while I'm able to do this webinar, and I don't have to hire someone. So really it's for me kind of building my life by design. So even though I'm primarily a mom, whether it's like with this EGR, the local public safety department, I actually ended up working with them at 7 a.m., right? So whether it's early in the morning or later at night or during the kids' nap times, or I do actually hire someone a couple days a week as well, for additional hours to meet with clients and do work and that kind of thing. So I will probably continue a similar framework, granted a new baby in a couple months will, they need a little more attention, but having the ability to get away a couple afternoons or mornings a week is really big, to give me that space to meet with clients and do follow-up and that kind of thing. So I will keep that framework and then honestly rely on my husband for anything else that pops up. And as the kids get older, obviously, and they're in school full time, then that will also morph and change too with my time. So,
well, what I heard here in this little piece is that your husband's a realtor, so that makes a big difference if he's not a professional athlete and traveling with the kind of schedule that he must have had prior.
Yeah, and even with that, like he would have maybe 2-day road trips, so it wasn't horrible. And from a day-to-day basis, when he was in town, training, he did still have quite a bit of time at home to be flexible. So it's not entirely different, honestly, because I honestly say it mirrors his former career in professional sports, because his quote game days were on the weekends, and that's honestly when he'll do maybe open houses or showings sometimes. But during the week, we're able to carve out time for ourselves, and then also if I need, to do more business work and that kind of thing, he can really help step in if he's got a little heads up. So yeah, he's kind of my it factor to making this all work, honestly, that and hiring additional help. So yeah, so for me, my business focus is really, besides getting over the hump of having a new baby, is just more doing. I think that it's so easy to get caught in I don't know enough, which is still a battle that I fight all the time, because obviously in this field, it's constantly morphing and changing. And it's hard to keep up on it all. And so I feel like I'm kind of one that loves mastery, but with my time being limited, I've had to let some of that go and realize that, and most graduates know, like we know so much more than the average person, and being able to just help someone, get a little bit better is something, versus being the, brainiac expert. And at the end of the day, honestly, like people who are the brainiac experts, like there's more to it than just being able to spit off knowledge to clients. It's the psychology of it, right? It's tapping into the actual psychology of change that can be a interesting coaching piece. So for me, again, like I said, it's exploring opportunities. I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with a local mom's gym. That's actually more volunteer-wise, where I go and lead like a mama's circle, they call it, on Fridays. So I get exposure to local moms, and they get exposure to me. I'm doing a panel to senior athletes at my former alma mater in a couple weeks as well.
Great.
I actually hooked up with, do you remember Tara Chieffi? I don't know if you remember her, but she was a graduate and alum from Hawthorn.
Oh, sure.
Have stayed connected, and she is now writing for Pop Sugar. And so recently she's asked for my opinion on a couple articles. And so I've been published in 3 articles now through Pop Sugar. So that's something where I'm not getting paid, but it's at least, exposure to myself. And it kind of gives me that platform as an expert. It gives me exposure that way.
Yeah, I love the collaboration too. And Tara was previously on All About Alumni. And so if you haven't, anybody hasn't heard her presentation, it's a great story too.
Fantastic. Yeah, she's great. I've been on Jimmy Moore. He's a pretty popular kind of low carb paleo person. And I was on his podcast back in 2014 with my husband, which was really cool. There's another opportunity in February where I'm actually connecting with a local MOPS group, which stands for Mothers of Preschoolers. So every year they have a wellness day, and vendors can come in and kind of have a 10-minute spiel with groups as they circle through. So I'm excited because I get to do that in February, and I'll be talking on kind of survival mode tips for young moms, that kind of thing, which will hopefully give me exposure to other people too. So so kind of exploring these free but also paying opportunities, and then gaining experiences. And Emerson Ecologics has a really phenomenal platform called Elevate.
Yes.
So I do have a nutrition account through them, and it has been a phenomenal way, because naturally we all get asked, what should I be taking and that kind of thing. And it's a great way to both advise people, but also make a little bit of money on the side. So for me, that's one definitely avenue that I want to continue to build just for base business. And I know it's kind of a win-win situation, like I said, because you're able to give quality recommendations and you can make a little bit of money on the side too.
Right. You should make money because, you're trained in making these kind of recommendations, but having a platform like Wellevate it's just very nicely designed so you can build up your own supplement apothecary, basically.
Right.
Based on your clientele. So.
Right. And it's been great. I was mostly trained in like a lot of metagenics when I worked for Dr. Dunbar, but it's also been great to kind of experiment and research and try out other brands as well, just to see, what do I think, what's working better and that kind of thing. Yeah. Like last week, I think I need like $200, just from people buying from Emrys or from Wellevate, which is great. So, between taking on new clients and building that up, that could be a great way to make money.
Exactly. And, the beauty of it is that they're carrying your inventory and shipping it. You're not buying it, storing it, stocking it, hoping it sells in time and not having to manage inventory. It's just so convenient. Right. So a lot is happening here. It's really impressive to see. So how are you taking care of yourself?
Yes, I know. We have to practice what we preach, right? So I still try to get in like a daily walk every day. Right now it's not easy, right? We have like sub-zero temperatures. It feels like here. And so I have to rely on my husband a lot for walks because normally, I wouldn't mind taking the kids out, but it's just too cold. So I have to be active like every day. That's really important to me. Real food is a constant, right? All of us kind of live that world. So, lots of big salads and collagen smoothies and, egg, veggie omelets, that kind of thing. And then trying to get good sleep. My kids are almost 2 and 4. So, and they've been honestly hibernating until like 8 a.m. So I'm able to get, great sleep. Granted, that's going to change with a newborn. But yeah, it's just kind of being patient with myself and knowing I can't do it all. And if there's an area of my life where I feel like, I'm neglecting or something, just paying attention to that.
Okay, that's good. Sleep, eating, movement, these are good. And what I hear from you is your commitment to moving and your needing for being active is both mental, physical, as well as emotional.
Oh, completely. I have that athletic background in me, so it's definitely in me. It's totally morphed over time. Before children, I would be in the gym for hours and hours. And as I've learned more and experimented more, I don't need as much, that, but I'll do a quick 20-minute high intensity interval workout in my living room, right? I don't have to go to a gym for that. I've got a couple kettlebells and some weights and that kind of thing. So just maximizing time. And honestly, that's almost better at this stage of life because it doesn't fry the adrenals as much, versus a really, really intense long workout. So yeah, it's always morphing.
All right. Well, talk to us a little bit about what's coming. What are you dreaming about? What are you inspired about? What are your future goals?
Yeah, so I have always wanted to become board certified. That's definitely a huge importance to me. And I did a lot of research right after having my son, but at this point with the time and the money investment, I'm just putting it on hold until probably a few years from now. So that's definitely still a main priority. I'm logging my client hours and that kind of thing, which honestly might give me some buffer that I need to build up. Because I think you need 1,200 hours, right, with clients.
Yes.
To be able to sit for the exam, unless you do it right after you graduate, of course. So that's definitely a thing. And for me, that's also, I feel like, going to push me to really stay current. Not that I'm not, but once I commit to that, it will really force me to stay on top of the upcoming knowledge. I'd love to do more functional medicine stuff. Even Chris Kresser has this really cool ADAPT program. Yeah. I think it's even geared mostly to health coaches, lab training especially. Chris Masterdon actually just came out with a really phenomenal, I don't know if you saw this, but he launched kind of a guide to finding nutritional deficiencies and what labs you should.
It's a beautiful guide. It is.
Have you bought it?
Work. Yes, it's a piece of work.
Okay, well that's that's going to or affirm why I should buy it then. Cause I saw it was a little bit, I think $30 or something, but
Yes.
so another one that I've had on my bucket list, honestly, since years ago was the Institute for Psychology of Eating. Right. Just having been a woman and going through body issues and that kind of thing. I think that's just, and honestly, food is psychological, right?
Yes.
Like the majority of us, I feel like that's the block. A lot of people know what to do. It's just that they don't do it for psychological reasons. So that's something that I feel like would be a really interesting marriage to having the nutritional knowledge as well.
Yes, nicely done. And we're building in a lot more information to support behavioral change practices in our program. So revisit your Hawthorn platform sometime, Julia. You'll see some new materials coming in. And lab training, lab testing, I think is so important. It's one of the things that certainly is built into our clinical programs and trainings here at Hawthorn. But it's a point of emphasis for me in 2018, and I'm building in a 6-part lab testing webinar series, and it will ultimately develop into a course.
That is
so yeah.
I will definitely be signing up for that. Thank you for that heads up.
We'll have more information on that real soon. So, and board certification, I'm glad that you're doing it. Yes, it's an ordeal to do, but it's a strong credential to have after your name and good organization to be part of.
I agree. Yes, that's on like the 5-year plan, I think, hopefully. So, yeah. And then like I said before, children, I blogged a lot and I got a lot of traffic, and I really do enjoy doing the newsletter and that kind of thing. But I'd rather have the FaceTime with people right now. So with more time, I would love to get back to blogging, even if it's once a month, being able to have fresh content and then publishing a newsletter, which also drives, being on the forefront of people's minds and being able to have them.
It does. It matters. It really matters to keep having new content. And it's it keeps you fresh and current also.
Right. So yeah, and then program development, that's another thing. I feel like with gaining more experiences and really understanding the problems of my clients, that will drive the programs that I decide to develop. Like, especially with moms, finding kind of that area where their biggest pain point is and being able to kind of speak to that and develop something that they would buy ultimately. Yes. That's something that I'd love to experiment with in the future as well.
Sounds really great. Sounds really good. This has been so interesting and informative. I wonder if you have any closing thoughts.
Yeah, I think it can be intimidating, right? Upon finishing your degree, it's like, where do I go from here? I don't know enough. Some of these kind of demonizing thoughts. It's a lot to take on, but I feel like just taking the first step is everything. I think it's easy to talk ourselves out of it, but at the end of the day, we learn by doing and we grow by doing. So if I could just advise, any current students or even, fresh graduates, I would just say, just start that blog or work with that first client, because, we're not going to grow and change if we don't take that first step. And I also think, I talked a lot about how my passions have driven who I serve currently. So I feel like that can be a really big theme to take away is, who do you love to work with? What are your interests, and kind of following that to pursue who you work with. And it will probably be someone or, an opportunity that you thrive in, because it's kind of around who you are and what you love.
Right. Beautiful. Well, do you feel like you achieved the goal you had set out in getting your degree at Hawthorn? And do you feel like Hawthorn really supported your efforts while you were in school and post-graduation?
Definitely. And I think that it only continues to do so. I love, like you said, you've got this like lab series coming up, which is a phenomenal way to have continuous education, right? And obviously there are recordings, right? So if people can't make it, they can still listen in. But yeah, I love my time. I love the flexibility. At the time, I did want to have an in-person university, but because of my situation of living overseas, it wasn't possible. And frankly, I did like 6 months of research on programs, and Hawthorn was the one that really spoke to me the most with the actual program, and not wanting to go the registered dietitian route and study, old information. frankly. So, and then honestly, my professor, Dr. Bianca Garilli, was phenomenal. Just very involved, very informative. She's a current practicing naturopath herself. So just being able to like bounce off ideas from her. She was really supportive in, post-graduation pursuing my interests and passions as well. So yeah, I have nothing but awesome things to say about your program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Like you say, we just got to get started. More doing. there's a creative, I love hearing your creative process with this. It seems very like it's just really unfolding naturally for you, your life and your business. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question here from Donna. She's asking, how did the corporate wellness job become an opportunity? Did you reach out, or were you sought after? And in terms of compensation, are you on the corporation's payroll?
Great question. So back in, I guess it was September, I did a big Facebook announcement because I'd been working on my website redesign for so long, and I just wanted people to know this is what I'm doing, this is who I am. So I did this big launch, and back in college, we used to play against some guys, right, to gain strength and speed and that kind of thing. And there was this guy who became a teacher, Jonathan Goey, and since becoming a teacher, he is now co-owner of this company. So I had a relationship with him back, in college, and he saw what I was doing, and they're a sustainable company. They have a really cool mission. They're called Green Circle Salons. They basically recycle like hair products and stuff. So anyways, as co-owner of this company, they wanted to kind of align their mission of sustainability with sustainable health. And so it was really like basically lucky timing that they were looking for something like that. And he saw that was something that I was into, based on reading my website and seeing my offerings. But he did seek me out for that. And then in terms of compensation, we talked about their needs as a company. I kind of got creative and threw out some ideas and kind of came up with like a framework where I gave them, I think, like 2 or 3 different pricing options and what I would offer them. And so based on that, they have been paying me like every 6 months. So it's like a year contract right now. Hopefully continues, right? And it's all an experiment, but yeah, it's been pretty fruitful.
Sounds fabulous. Sounds something that is serving you, serving them, and has some opportunity to carry on.
Yeah, and I think there's a big opportunity for small to middle businesses, because I think these big box companies, in terms of corporate wellness, of course, can afford these huge big platforms and where people log in and that kind of thing. And I actually, when I worked for this company, Stryker, I remember logging into this corporate wellness initiative, and for me, it didn't drive me enough. But I feel like with the smaller companies, they don't have the big budgets that these big companies do. So
yes.
Having a person like us who can get creative out of the box and be able to use social media and webinars, that kind of thing, would be a way that the company doesn't have to spend so much, but gets that really personal touch.
I think that what I've heard here is I love how this has developed for you from your passion and your interest as a child, from your weaknesses and challenges that you had with health that you may not even have recognized as challenges yet, or just like your norm, the different people that you've met and aligned with and found your way to where you are now, and everything. There's so much that's in front of you. It's like when I think about you in the field of sports nutrition and how important that is and how much influence you can have, and then with young moms and families and in the corporate field and making the inroads in there, it's like, oh my gosh, you have so much to offer. And I encourage everybody to pay attention to what you've done here. I mean, you started with putting yourself out there and developing your online presence so that people could find you and know a little bit about you. And you developed a really nice calling card and and it's working. It's paying off.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say though, even before I kind of relaunched my business, I got that opportunity with the Davenport women's basketball team. So it is important, I think, to have this quote placeholder online, right? Just because that's the way of our world, but it shouldn't deter people from starting even before it's launched, if you will. Even, you know, being able to get opportunities before that, before the logo is beautiful, before the website's perfect, right? You can still go out and get clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Start now. Just start. Like it's a great piece of advice here. Just start. Just do it.
Right. And I think I don't know if everyone feels this way too, but it's been interesting because I still desire to work with clients one-on-one, but for me, I can find that also can be draining, right? Just because there is a significant barrier to people actually adopting change.
Yes.
So for me, I found that working with like groups gives me a lot of satisfaction, but it also brings a community aspect. And honestly, they're paying for buck there, right? Because if you're working with a corporation, they typically have a bigger budget, that kind of thing. I know another avenue that I'd love to work on locally. There's like a local chiropractor I just was alerted to, who works with like professional athletes specifically. And I guess he's always looking for, you know, nutrition professionals to work with them. So that's another avenue, I guess, on the docket for the future. Not to segue too much, but he does take insurance. So that's another way that I know a lot of people in this profession, right? Because of all the different red tape and laws and not being a quote RD. That's a way that you can, you know, not have to charge an arm and a leg if you can hook up with a chiropractor who can take insurance.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Julie. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Paula.
Yeah, I hope you'll visit us again at Hawthorn and continue to share the good works you're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, everybody. I hope you'll spread the word for our next All About Alumni and meet here again on Wednesday, February 7th, when we're live with Michelle Mulroney, a graduate from a master's program. She's going to share her experiences. So until then, I'm going to keep wishing you the best of health and hope that you all take good care of yourselves and those you love. Bye for now.